Lizzie, how's it going, girl?
Hello, how are you guys? I can hear what's going on there, and it's very exciting.
We've actually got a question for you here. It's quite tricky. Why aren't there any Australian or New Zealand characters in the film, Lizzie?
Well, as you know, Franny, we did look for different characters in Australia and New Zealand, but through the whole making of the film, we were trying to limit our carbon emissions as much as possible. So we didn't really want to commit ourselves to flying to this part of the world twice to follow the documentary strand. But I think we may have missed a trick there, because we had a speaker tonight in the New Zealand Solar Cinema tent who really, would have been great to include in the film, actually. She's got an incredibly powerful story to tell, and she's actually here with me tonight. I think we can grab her in, yes, Pele. We've got Pele here, and she wants to speak to the people around Australia and New Zealand about her experiences of climate change.
My name is Pelanese Alofa Pilitati, and I want to take you to Kiribati, the country where I come from. I live with climate change, or the impacts of climate change, every day of my life, right now, in Kiribati. If my house, my concrete house or a permanent house is built on the beach side, but every high tide I have seawater seeping under my house, and it's collected in my front yard. My house is not on stilts, it's on the ground, but water comes underneath, in the sand, and it's collected in my front yard. I have many coconut trees around my house 4 years ago, and today I have only 2 coconut trees left. That's the impact of climate change. And I know it's getting worse, and it's going to get worse as the days go by if nothing is taken place, or we do not do anything to stop it. And so I know if the worst comes to the worst, I may be displaced. But me being a Banaban and a Pacific Islander and from Kiribati, no, my home is in Kiribati on Banaba, and that is my home. I will never move. And no one is going to take me away from there, because that's where my ancestors are. That's the country, that's the island that I love. Even though it's ugly or maybe it's not nice to anybody, but it is my home, and I want to live on that island.
Wow, thank you so much, Pele, for that really moving testimony. We had a pretty incredible Q&A actually here. They're cheering for you. I can hear them.
Thank you so much. And enjoy the premiere tonight.
Yeah, so the film, as you know, is finished here in New Zealand, and we had a Q&A, and it was a really moving evening with Pele speaking, the head of Greenpeace and Oxfam, and I had a Q&A that went for quite a long time. But I hope you guys, it's all going well in Sydney. It looked great from the green carpet VT. I'm so pleased everything seems to be going well. And I guess that's back to you.
Thanks, Lizzie. See you later. See you in LA in 3 days' time for the New York premiere, but we'll keep that quiet. So I think that there's a bit of a misconception that it's poor people all around the world who are going to suffer from climate change, and we in the rich countries are going to be, somewhat sheltered, relatively speaking. But obviously in the film we set fire to the Sydney Opera House. That was in 2050, though, 2055. So, John from Greenpeace, what's actually happening right now in Australia?
Australia is more vulnerable to climate change than many countries, and the big impacts here are really drought and bushfires. And we know that with climate change we'll see more severe and more frequent droughts and bushfires. And last summer, we had the tragic events in Victoria, killed many people, but more people died from the heat wave in Melbourne and Adelaide than through the bushfires. And it's a fact that a lot of people don't know, and that's the real impact of climate change, real impacts in people's lives today. It's not something for the future, it's something that's happening now.
But can you really say that the bushfire is climate change?
We know that climate change is going to make bushfires more intense and more frequent. And we heard in the news in the last couple of weeks that the Bureau of Meteorology are predicting that this fire season coming up this summer, it might even be even worse than last summer. It's really unprecedented.
I mean, the latest report says that it's actually 300,000 people are dying every year of climate impacts so far. But the single biggest climate event in terms of number of deaths was actually the European heat wave in 2003. I think 35,000 Europeans were taken out of their homes in body bags. If that was not enough to warn us, what is. I think we've actually, they're saying in my ear, clearly I'm not really a presenter, don't you? This all happened accidentally, but I think we've got Piers on the phone. Have we got Piers on the phone? No, we haven't. He's probably still in bed. I've got absolutely no idea what time it is in the UK. But what we have got is a friend of yours, actually, John, who's up in the Arctic and has made us a special film. It's just a couple of minutes long. They've literally finished that this morning and then zapped it down to us. So let's have a look at the new film.
I'm Eric Phillips. I'm here with Greenpeace in northwest Greenland, the ideal place to make some sense of the age of stupid. The Arctic is one of the places hardest hit by climate change, and our ship, the Arctic Sunrise, has been acting as a platform for a team of independent scientists studying the impacts on Greenland's glaciers. These glaciers not only hold gigatons of ice, they also act as a dam to hold Greenland's ice sheet in place. As the glaciers decline and retreat, they're releasing more and more fresh water into the ocean, which contributes to global sea level rise. The effects will render millions homeless, cause widespread famine, and eliminate entire species. We've spent weeks carrying out cutting-edge research on Petermann, the largest floating glacier in the Northern Hemisphere. It's expected to lose 100 square kilometres of ice. That's a decade's water supply for Sydney. I've skied more than 5,000 kilometres during numerous expeditions throughout the Arctic and Antarctic. Each year brings new surprises. Severe storms rarely seen in these parts, vast tracts of first-year ice where there should be years of accumulation. Temperatures are rising, and black carbon belched out by our oil-driven economies can be found lying on the ice, even this far north. The veneer of fractured ice over the Arctic Ocean is disintegrating before my eyes. Scientists now agree that predictions for Greenland's ice sheet were far too conservative, which is why there's an urgent need for deep, mandatory cuts in greenhouse gas emissions if the worst impacts of climate change are to be avoided. We've been denying the responsibility and the urgency. Are we putting enough pressure on the people in charge? World leaders have the power and the duty to stop climate change in its tracks. Let's not shy away from this. We can save ourselves.
Up in the Arctic, and hopefully we are now going to get a live satellite link to Eric on the Greenpeace boats. Is that possible? Eric, is that you?
It certainly is me. Hello, Fanny.
Hey, there's going to be a bit of a delay as we speak, apparently, but that's okay. We've got plenty of time left to solve climate change. So, Eric, what are you witnessing up there in Greenland?
I've been in Greenland now for almost 2 months, and 5 weeks of those we spent up in the northwest of Greenland in a glacial region, the Humboldt and Petermann glaciers, very large glaciers, and we've been examining the effects of climate change on these massive glaciers.
I think the Petermann Glacier is actually the famous one that we all heard about in the news last year or the year before, because it dropped a chunk of ice half the size of Manhattan. It was in the news a couple of years ago. That's where he is. So, Eric, what's going on up there?
It's a very busy program. We've got plenty of scientists on board, and these scientists are realizing that the influence of Greenland's melting ice caps and on global sea is actually much worse than previously understood and predicted.
So how much worse is much worse?
Well, they're predicting an increase of 1 to 2 meters by the end of this century.
So a 1 to 2 meter sea level rise by the end of this century, what would be the impact on human populations around the world?